Hi, welcome to our first lecture. Today we're going to talk about Reconstruction. I've titled this Aftermath because obviously we're talking about the end of the Civil War. So the Civil War ends in 1865, and basically the Southern economy had been destroyed. As you can see in this picture, the South was not in good shape. 650,000 people in both the South and the North had been killed during the Civil War, and 4 million slaves had been freed. Um, in the South, wealth had dropped 60%, property values tanked, Union troops were stationed all over the place, which really upset Southern whites. African Americans were now known as freedmen. The 13th Amendment had ended slavery, though not racism, and these African Americans saw Yankee soldiers as saviors. And they began to gather in mass meetings and buy things that they couldn't buy before, like guns and liquor. And family became an even more important component to African American lifestyles. In short, the Civil War devastated the South and brought about the most dramatic social change in the history of the country. So there were two questions at the end of the Civil War that the country had to deal with. First was, how do we reunite the country, the North and the South? Secondly, what do we do with 4 million new citizens? You also saw a change in how people viewed freedom. For Southern whites, freedom had been sort of a birthright, something to which they had been entitled, but that they had to protect. And slavery was God's order of society. That's how he wanted it. He wanted whites on top, and he created blacks to be on bottom. For the freedmen, slavery was it was basically taking advantage of someone's labor without that person's consent. And freedom consisted of 5 different components: self-ownership, family stability, religious liberty, political participation, and economic autonomy. And these 5 things were essential to escaping slavery. So around this time, like I said, you began to see mass meetings of African Americans. This included churches. Churches played a huge role in the African American culture. They housed schools, social events, political gatherings. They helped to increase a desire for education because more and more African Americans wanted to read the Bible. Um, Also, politics became more important because now they could actually engage in the political system. They wanted the right to vote, and they wanted the right to congregate. Frederick Douglass famously said, "Slavery is not abolished until the black man has the ballot." In terms of economic freedom, African Americans wanted to take part in the Jeffersonian ideal, which of course was Thomas Jefferson's concept of the ideal American. This ideal American was a white farmer who was educated, and African Americans wanted to participate in that system as well. Uh, so for whites, freedom, no matter how defined, was a given birthright that had to be defended. But for African Americans, freedom was a process that they had to work through. Um, and it was a transformation of every aspect of their lives and of the society and culture that slavery had sustained for so many years. So now let's look at how they plan to put the country back together. Lincoln's plan was very basic. Essentially, he wanted to grant amnesty to almost everyone except the Confederate office holders. He said that 10% of state populations had to agree to a plan for statehood in order to be welcomed back into the Union. Very low percentage, very generous. He favored the 13th Amendment. He wanted other states to favor it as well. And he created the Freedmen's Bureau, which we'll talk about later. Lincoln didn't really see Reconstruction as an opportunity to revolutionize the country or American culture, but he did see it as an opportunity to get the country back together as quickly as possible. He also, surprisingly, favored suffrage for African Americans. And I say surprisingly because that was a very contentious issue that would cause a lot of problems for bringing the South back into the Union. Unfortunately, however, Lincoln's vision for Reconstruction died with him when he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth in April of 1865. The theory goes that Booth was at Lincoln's second inauguration. Supposedly, this is John Wilkes Booth up here watching Lincoln give his speech. And when Lincoln mentioned enfranchising African Americans, Booth lost it and put his plan into action to kill Lincoln. So that left the country with Vice President Andrew Johnson, who had his own ideas for Reconstruction. In Johnson's view, Reconstruction should consist of excluding Confederate leaders and wealthy planters, provisional governors should be set up across the South, and state conventions should be held to establish state governments. And the only people who could participate in these state conventions were whites. Johnson did not want blacks involved. And so this, of course, leads to discrimination, which leads to systemized racism in the form of something called black codes. And these black codes were basically laws that restricted the rights of blacks. And we'll learn more about that later. Congress, of course, did not agree with Johnson. They thought that he was too lenient to the South. He handed out way too many pardons and granted too many people amnesty. And so they wanted to essentially make it harder for the South to come back into the Union. New state governments in the South had to be established that were friendly to the Constitution. African Americans had to be given the right to vote, and they wanted to expand the authority of the federal government. So in 1866, Congress passes the Civil Rights Bill, which defined everyone born in the United States as a citizen. It was focused on free labor and eliminated black codes. It didn't really say anything about voting rights. It was mostly focused on labor. But it gave the 13th Amendment more meaning. Johnson, of course, vetoed it. Why? Because he was a blatant racist. I mean, there's really no arguing that. Having grown up in Tennessee, he did not like African Americans. But Congress overruled his veto in April of 1867, which was the first time that a bill had been passed over a presidential veto. Sorry, I think it was 1866 is when that happened. 14th Amendment was also passed, which basically wrote the Civil Rights Bill into the Constitution. And this, of course, gave African Americans full citizenship status. Everyone born in the U.S., no matter their color of skin, was a U.S. citizen. Though it still did not give them the right to vote, it did say that if a state denied the vote to any group of men, that state would lose representation. This, of course, goes back to the 3/5 clause of the Constitution, which, when the Constitution was created, said that African Americans counted for 3/5 of a person. This was a compromise to allow Southern whites to count African American slaves as the members of the population so that they could get more representation in Congress. So that ended with the ending of slavery, and African Americans were now considered full-on citizens. So if the South decided to deny them the right to vote, that would mean that they would lose representation in Congress. 14th Amendment passed easily, and Southern states were required to ratify it in order to be brought back into the Union. Then, of course, we have the Reconstruction Act of 1867, which split up the South into 5 military districts, and each southern state had to draw up a new constitution. They also had to enfranchise black men, and never had such a large group been enfranchised in the history of the United States up to this point. This was huge. Unfortunately, it backfired. Well, almost backfired because almost all prospective black voters depended on white landowners for their livelihood, for their jobs, which meant that white landowners could use coercive tactics to control the vote. It didn't really work because many African Americans did turn out to vote, despite the fears, and they almost always aligned themselves with the Republican Party. Johnson, of course, vetoed the Reconstruction Act, but Congress passed it anyway, and this officially began radical Reconstruction, which lasted until 1877. And finally, we have the 15th Amendment, which prohibited federal and state governments from denying any citizen the right to vote because of race. Surprisingly, many American women disagreed with the 15th Amendment. They believed that if African American men should be given the right to vote, then certainly they should be given the right to vote. Women, of course, at this time did not have the right to vote, so they did not appreciate black men getting the right to vote before they did. So that's why you have some suffragettes, such as Susan B. Anthony, disagreeing with the 15th Amendment and not supporting it. So the Southern economy struggled to regain its footing. They kept their faith in cotton, which was a huge mistake because that led to massive inflation and prices plummeted. This led to an increase in violence, especially towards African Americans. In 1866 in Tennessee, you see the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, which became a terrorist organization and the military arm of the Southern Democrats. Ulysses S. Grant, who was elected in 1866, passed the Enforcement Acts, which allowed him to send the army into the South to force them to capitulate to Northern demands. This was not a lot of people agreed with this, including people in the North. I'm going to move this up here so you can see that picture. They thought it was a massive overreach of Grant's authority, and so he was forced to pull back troops. And then when violence escalated, he refused to send troops back to protect white Republicans and blacks in the South. Finally, there was a huge national depression which curtailed the interest in Reconstruction, even in the North. Northerners became more concerned with maintaining their livelihoods than enforcing the South to capitulate to Reconstruction Acts. So that's where we get the bargain of 1877. Sorry, I'm in the way again. Bargain of 1877. So the election of 1876 was so hotly contested and so controversial that Congress decided to put together a commission of 8 Republicans and 7 Democrats to decide the outcome of the presidential election. And behind closed doors, it was decided that Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, would be given the presidency in exchange for federal financial assistance in the South and a member of the Democratic Party to be appointed into Hayes's cabinet. The South also agreed that they would grant civil rights to African Americans. They, of course, did not do this, and as a result, the federal government did not grant them much assistance, but nevertheless, the bargain stood. Hayes was given the presidency, and the North pulled back from Reconstruction.